The Trump administration separating families at the border. And now people, they're rebelling, rallies nationwide to protest a policy. Then, is President Trump damaging the brand of the GOP? Many of his policies, they're the opposite of what the GOP has stood for. Tonight, we'll take a closer look. Also, a grade scandal at a local high school. Students getting very high grades for very low quality work. The district investigating, and so are we. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. Thank you for joining us this Friday night. Well, this evening we begin with immigration, and in my words, and many others, I should say, a cruel policy the administration is doing right now, ratcheting up as we speak. It is proud of the fact that border agents are splitting up families. And when I say families, I mean children as young as infants. Here's Attorney General Jeff Sessions.
If you are smuggling a child, then we will prosecute you. And that child may be separated from you as required by law.
Smuggling, his words for what people say is coming into this country looking for asylum. Well, today, demonstrators took the streets in 30 cities to protest that very policy. Many immigration experts say they have never seen anything like what we are seeing now. One of them, Karen Anderson, a frequent guest of the program, and she runs a group called Neighbors Link. It helps immigrants in southern New York, and it's a group that's helped to organize a rally in White Plains today. Here she is describing how bad things are getting now for these families.
Have you ever seen anything as harsh as this?
Not on this level, with this amount of shamelessness. It's been a dirty little secret of immigration enforcement that when people get picked up, often the needs of their children are a secondary thought, and families are torn apart with traumatic consequences. That's nothing new. What's completely new and unprecedented is the completely open and shameless way the federal government is explicitly using family separation and criminalization of entry by asylum seekers to punish families.
ACLU working with Neighbors Link to fight the policy that is separating the families. They say it is against the law. You know, we often ask on this program how President Trump can do and say the things that he does. We worry about the consequences his toxic division and unending dishonesty will leave on our union before and even after he's gone. We ask why he delights in chaos and why most elected officials from his own party have put politics before principle and have not called him out. We ask these questions mostly of a president and his enablers, but I think it is way past due that we stop looking at the past year and a half as some bizarre experiment gone bad and instead ask the more difficult question: who are we becoming as a nation? When did we decide that the United States, who's been defined by our capacity for compassion and our symbol of the Statue of Liberty, for crying out loud, we're now the country that defends Nazis, labels our neighbors to the south as all rapists and murderers, and the whole African continent is comprised of a collection of S-hole countries? When did we become so permissive that we let a fraud in the Oval Office, who never put anyone, let alone country, before himself and his self-interest, when did we decide that ripping children from the arms of their mothers at our border is who we want to be as a nation? Now, this has nothing to do, and don't let anyone be phony enough to tell you that this is being tough on immigration or MS-13, for crying out loud. What this is, pure and simple, is a cruelty that I don't recognize as American. Documented reports show you have Salvadoran women fleeing the very gangs that the president talks about at every opportunity. And they're leaving with their infants. Sometimes they come after being beaten and raped, and their children as well, and they come to our border asking for refugee status, only to be told they have 2 minutes to say goodbye to their 18-month-old infant. We are criminalizing people who are seeking asylum by breaking up their family, leaving the mother most often with no answers as to where her children are or if her siblings are even being kept together. Past presidents, Republican or Democrat, didn't do this to the level we are seeing now. Now, maybe it didn't dawn on them to so proudly embrace cruelty. Maybe they understood the unnecessary stupidity of shoving kids into foster care systems and the inevitable social costs that'll come attached. Maybe they didn't do it simply because they instinctively knew that as hard as managing immigration policy is, and I don't minimize the difficulty, the idea of tearing up families for sport, that's not who we ever aspired to be. And shame on us, and that's me included, if we let this charlatan with no sense of American values redefine what we all supposedly stand for. Now, I should mention, we're going to get into this much more, but when we come back from the break, we're going to bring in our guest and our panel here to get into much more, including the former Speaker of the House talking about the GOP that he once ran and the GOP that he sees today. Stay with us.